Hello, welcome back, friends. We are back with the MLB DFS breakdown for today's Monday slate, April 24th. And before we get into it, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment to all our YouTube videos. It helps us out a ton. It gives us the ability to keep giving out free content here. And also, if you're not a subscriber of LineStar, you should probably become one. It's only $29.99. We also have some great promo codes that can get you a nice little trial for as little as $10 or $25, depending on which promo offer you want to use. So, without further ado, let's jump in. We got a good old 9-game slate or 7-game slate today on DraftKings. And on FanDuel, it is also 7. Sometimes FanDuel wants to throw in some of those earlier games, but not today. And as always, we'll jump into the pitching. Spencer Strider, no surprise to anybody, coming in at the highest owned. I think our ownership of 42.4 on him is low. I would be surprised if he's not 60+% owned. And the reason being is, we have him as an 8 fantasy point projection over the next closest pitcher. So, and across the industry, it's kind of similar. So I expect him to come in super high owned, 60 plus. There's a good reason. He has the highest median projection by quite a bit. He has the highest ceiling by quite a bit. His floor is probably higher than everybody as well. So he's in a good spot. I probably wouldn't get too crazy and try and fade him. Probably just play him. That's kind of how it's looking for me. 39% K rate, 40% over the last 5 games. It's really hard to get away from that in this Miami offense that's just not that good. Striking out 23%, only a 300 WOBA versus righties, 32% combined K rate. So we don't need to go too much into Strider. I think he's a good play. Ownership is probably worth it. And then Bassett definitely is probably the second best pitcher here as far as, price per salary. But I think there's a lot of guys that can be in the SP2 range here. 8,000's probably a little too cheap for him. He's been going over 105, 107 pitches a game lately. So you kind of got to like that. That White Sox offense has a couple guys, but it's not great. Striking out 23%, 290 WOBA versus righties. I think Bassett's in a decent spot here. And he's been pitching deep into games lately. So he's interesting. He is a little hit or miss, and the combined K rate is only 20%. So there's not that huge upside you get with like a Strider. But I do like him. He just went 6.1 with 5 Ks, no earned run against Houston. Did well against Detroit. Did well against the Angels. Just got blown up that first matchup of the season. So outside of that, he's been solid. Colin Ray is getting some love here. I don't totally love it, though. I think the Tigers have been swinging a hot bat lately. The one thing, though, is they are striking out a lot versus righties, 26.2%. Their combined K rate's 22%. So there is some upside here. The thing with Ray, for me, 5.84 FIP over the last 5 starts. It's just not something you love to see when you want to go with a pitcher, especially one that's, on the higher owned side. I think there's other places you can go to save some salary and get away from ownership a little bit. Sonny Gray is interesting. He's had some really good games to start the year, but it is against that Yankees offense. They strike out 22%. He typically has a 23% K rate. However, the last 5 starts, he's at 26. So his K rate has gone up so far a little bit this year. Not sure if that's going to stay. I think he's fine. Like I said, there's a lot of SP2 options here. Jordan Montgomery is another one. He's fine. I think he's a little overpriced, but there's just not a guy that really jumps out. One of the guys I wanted to bring up was Jose Suarez. He has had a real tough start this season. I think he is a better pitcher than what we've seen so far. So if you look, he has a 4.23 FIP, well below his 5.92 ERA over his last 5 starts. I think he is more of the guy, the 4.23 FIP, high threes FIP guy than what we have seen. So I'd expect some regression to come to him, and he should be some positive regression. He should be a little bit better here than he has. And if there's any matchup for him to snap out of it, it is versus the A's. 28.8% K rate versus lefties, low WOBA, super low ISO. You know, the A's just aren't great versus lefties. So this is a very interesting spot here. 21% combined K rate and only 5,800 is kind of interesting to me today. And there are some expensive stacks that we may want to pay up for. And really the only way to do that is if we're taking a very cheap pitcher, say with a Strider. Cobb is another guy, those high 8s, low 9s area that's kind of interesting and not that high owned. Lance Lynn has that Blue Jays matchup, but he's been hit or miss. He's been giving up a lot of home runs. Don't love him. Cabrera has that strikeout upside for sure, but against the Braves. So let's check out the FanDuel ownership. And this is going to be the same situation where I think that Strider's ownership is going to be much higher than 40%. Only reason you don't play him is based on a game theory thing, hoping Strider doesn't have a good game and that one of these other guys can kind of step up and score similarly or a little bit better than Strider. Outside of that scenario, Strider is by far the best play. So ownership is going to be high on him. Might be a day where you just got to take it and move on. Now, let's get into some stack attacks. You know, with the 7 games, obviously the 2 highest game totals are the Angels and Diamondbacks game. So Diamondbacks versus KC, Oakland versus the Angels. With that, a lot of ownership is going to go that way. Our highest projected stack today is the Diamondbacks. And they're in a good spot. I mean, I totally get it. Brad Keller hasn't been great. Last 20 starts, almost a FIP of 5, 1.79 whip. So he's letting guys on base. And this Diamondbacks team has really been killing people when they're letting them on base. So a lot of speed, some guys with some power, a lot of different ways to score from this Diamondbacks team, which is interesting. And it's not a very cheap or not a very expensive stack, which is interesting. So under 20K for 5 guys. You got to like that. Now, highest projected stack is the Angels. Angels are in a terrific spot today. I picked him, Trout, for my home run call. Ryan Humphreys is going Hunter Renfroe. So obviously we're in on the Angels. The issue with them that I see is they are expensive. 25.7K is the top stack that we have projected, and that's just a lot to pay for a stack. They don't have a lot of cheap guys that you really want to throw into the stack. They're cheap guys, usually don't have speed or don't have power or some issue like that. Can they have a good game? Yeah, absolutely. It's baseball. Everybody can do it. But just not quite as likely. So just understand, if you want to go Angels, you're going to have to pay down at pitcher at least one of your 2 spots. If you're on DraftKings, if you're on FanDuel, then you're probably going to have to go with the cheap secondary stack here. So they're in a great spot. Waldichuk hasn't been great. 5.6 FIP, giving up over 2 fantasy points per plate attempt. I really like the spot that he's in and wouldn't talk you off it if you were going there. Ownership doesn't scare me away at all as well. So now if we go to the ceiling, we have the Brewers topping us for ceiling here, which makes sense. Boyd hasn't been great. fantasy points per plate attempt, only 1.57, but he has a FIP of over 5 in the last 20 starts. So I think it's interesting. I absolutely think you can go with Brewers, and they are kind of a cheaper stack, so it might allow you to get into Strider and then pay up for another SP2, or your secondary stack to be expensive, say the Angels or something. So you gotta like that. And the highest value is the Tigers. Tigers are very interesting to me today. I don't think Ray is that good. He's given up 1.9 fantasy points per plate attempt, almost a FIP of 5. So I think there's a lot of ways you can attack this slate. If you want to pay up for pitchers, a great way will be the Tigers. It is a little bit risky. You can see their leverage score is high, but all that really means is that ownership's not going there. Meanwhile, the projections are still fairly high, as you can see from the value. So I think it's interesting. Nobody's doing it, and it could pay off, absolutely. Now, another one, I know I talked about Suarez as a potential pitcher, but he also hasn't been great. Nobody's going to the A's. They have a lot of guys that have either speed or power or some combination of that coming in nicely here on the value stack. So I think you could go there as well. As you can see, the 4.23 FIP over the last 5 for Suarez isn't the most enticing. Now, if we go to fantasy points per plate attempt, we have Henry topping it with KC. I think KC's in a really good spot as well. As we talked about, that Arizona versus Royals game is one of the higher owned, one of the higher game totals of the day. So I think it is very interesting to go to KC, especially when they are getting almost no ownership and they have some guys that can hit. That is another way you can go. So that will do it today. We walked through all the slate, all the stacks. We walked through all the pitchers. A lot of ways I think you can go on this slate. You guys have a good one. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our video. And I will be back tomorrow. Good luck. I'll see you later.